She slipped a hot meal to a homeless veteran, paid for it with her own tips, and her boss fired her in front of a packed diner. Why would a single act of kindness cost her everything? And who walked through that door next, silencing the entire room? The answer will leave you speechless. In the heart of Asheville, North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Diner buzzed with life. Plates clinked, coffee machines hissed, and the morning crowd filled every booth. Sarah Jenkins, 30, moved like a quiet force, her sneakers damp from the rain, her smile steady despite the chaos. She served tables with a warmth that made strangers feel known. But behind the counter, her manager, David Kessler, watched with a cold eye, ready to pounce on any misstep. Something was about to unfold that no one saw coming. Something that would change the diner forever. The Blue Ridge Diner hummed with the rhythm of a busy morning, where the clatter of plates and the low murmur of conversation never stopped. Sarah Jenkins wove through the crowded tables, her apron stained with coffee, her hands steady despite the weight of double shifts. She greeted each customer with a quiet nod, remembering names and orders like they were family. A spilled glass of water didn't faze her. She knelt to clean it, whispering to Mia, the nervous new server, "You're doing fine. Just breathe." But David Kessler's shadow loomed large. His sharp voice cut through the noise, barking at Sarah for a delayed order, his eyes scanning for flaws. She didn't flinch, just kept moving, her kindness a quiet rebellion against his cold control. In that bustling diner, filled with strangers and routine, something extraordinary was stirring. Something no one, not even Sarah, could have predicted. Sarah's eyes caught a frail figure, hesitating by the Blue Ridge Diner's entrance, his silhouette nearly swallowed by the morning's gray drizzle. Frank Dawson, in his 70s, stood alone, his coat threadbare, a faded military cap clutched in trembling hands. The diner buzzed, plates clinked, customers laughed, but Frank was a ghost in the crowd, his eyes clouded with years of hardship. Sarah set down a tray of steaming coffee mugs, her sneakers squeaking on the worn linoleum, and approached him gently. "Sir, you okay? Need a warm spot?" His voice, hoarse and fragile, answered, "Just somewhere to rest, maybe." She guided him to a quiet booth, ignoring the impatient glances from a nearby table demanding refills. Without hesitation, she slipped $10 from her tips into the register, her fingers quick but deliberate, and called to the cook, "1 burger, fries, coffee, make it quick." The plate arrived, steaming, the rich aroma of grilled meat and fresh coffee filling the air. Frank's weathered face softened, a rare smile breaking through as he gripped the warm mug like a lifeline. "You didn't have to do this," he whispered, his voice thick with gratitude, almost breaking. Sarah just nodded, her eyes kind but resolute. "Yeah, I did." The moment felt small, human, a flicker of warmth in the diner's chaos. But then, David Kessler's voice sliced through the hum, sharp and venomous. "Jenkins, what the hell is this? Giving out free food now?" Every head turned, forks pausing mid-air, the room's energy shifting to a tense hush. Sarah faced him, her cheeks flushed but her voice steady. "I paid for it, David. He's a veteran, and he's hungry." David stepped closer, his sneer louder than his words, cutting deeper. "This isn't your personal soup kitchen. I make the rules here, not you." His voice rose, deliberate, echoing across the packed diner. "You're done, Jenkins. Turn in your apron and get out." The silence was deafening, the weight of his cruelty sinking into every corner. A woman at the counter froze, her phone half raised, quietly recording the scene. Sarah stood tall, folding her apron with steady hands, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hurt. Frank looked up, his fork trembling, his voice barely audible over the stillness. She didn't do anything wrong. The air crackled, heavy with unspoken tension, as if the diner itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to shatter the silence. The diner's lively hum collapsed into a brittle silence, every eye fixed on Sarah as she folded her apron, her hands steady despite the faint tremor in her breath. David Kessler loomed behind the counter, his smirk sharp, convinced he'd crushed her spirit. The clatter of plates and chatter had vanished, replaced by a heavy, judgmental stillness that clung to the air. Then, Frank Dawson's voice, frail yet piercing, sliced through like a quiet thunderclap. She didn't do anything wrong. I'm a veteran, and she gave me more than a meal. She gave me dignity. His trembling hand brushed the Purple Heart pinned to his tattered coat, its faint glint catching the diner's flickering neon glow. Ellen Harper, a gray-haired regular with a no-nonsense stare, rose slowly, her voice steady and unyielding. That's more than you've ever done, Kessler. Sarah's the heart of this place. Mia, the young server, stepped forward, her voice cracking with raw emotion. She helped me fix my car, never asked for a dime. She stays late, walks me to my bus in the dark. Reggie, a daily customer, leaned back, his coffee long cold. I come here for her, not you, man. Whispers rippled through the crowd, a swelling murmur of agreement. A quiet man in a corner booth, usually lost in his newspaper, nodded slowly. She remembers my kid's name every time. Clara, a nurse at the counter, stood, her phone still recording, its tiny light flickering like a beacon. You fired her for being human, she said, her tone sharp but measured, cutting through the tension. The room shifted, the tide turning against David. His eyes darted, his confidence unraveling like a frayed thread. This is my diner, my rules, he snapped, but his voice faltered, drowned by the growing dissent. A young couple near the window stood, leaving cash on the table with a scribbled note. For Sarah. Others followed, their footsteps soft but deliberate, each bill a quiet rebellion against David's cruelty. His hands gripped the counter, knuckles white, as he scanned the room for allies and found none. The air thickened, charged with a restless energy, as if the diner itself was bracing for something unstoppable. Sarah, still by Frank's booth, met his eyes, his gratitude unspoken but deep. A silent bond forged in that fleeting moment. She didn't speak. Her actions had already spoken louder than any words could. The Blue Ridge Diner, once just a stop for coffee and quick meals, had become a stage, and the next act was waiting in the wings. The diner's tense silence hung like a storm on the verge of breaking, the air thick with the weight of Sarah's folded apron and Frank Dawson's trembling plea. The door's bell rang, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the quiet like a signal flare. 3 Marines in crisp uniforms stepped inside, their boots striking the linoleum with heavy, purposeful thuds that reverberated in the stillness. Middle-aged, their faces etched with the calm resolve of men who'd faced more than most, they scanned the room with quiet authority. Sergeant Marcus Reed, his eyes steady as weathered stone, locked onto Frank in his booth, the old man's hands clutching his coffee. "We heard your call, sir," Marcus said, his voice low but commanding, filling every corner of the diner. "Who fired the woman who helped you?" David Kessler, gripping the counter, stammered, his earlier swagger dissolving like mist. "This is my diner," he muttered, but the words fell flat, hollow against the Marine's unyielding presence. Marcus stepped closer, his shadow stretching long across the faded floor. "You fired her for showing respect to a man who served this country." Juan Morales, another Marine, pointed to Frank's Purple Heart, its faint glint catching the diner's flickering neon glow. That pin means sacrifice. You wouldn't understand. The third Marine, quieter, his face lined with years of unspoken stories, nodded at Sarah, who stood frozen by the booth, her eyes wide but grounded, her hands still clutching the worn apron. Customers whispered, their phones raised higher, screens glowing as they captured every word. Ellen Harper, the grey-haired regular, murmured, "This is why she's different." Reggie clapped softly, the sound catching like a spark, spreading through the crowd. Clara's camera light flickered, steady on Marcus, preserving the moment for the world. The diner's neon glow seemed to fade, the focus now on the Marine's unwavering stance. David's hands trembled, his voice a weak protest. "She broke policy." Marcus cut him off, calm but unyielding. "Policy doesn't trump decency." The room stirred, a wave of agreement rippling through the booths. A young couple nodded, their cash still on the table with a scribbled note for Sarah. Mia, tears brimming in her eyes, stepped closer to Sarah, whispering, "You deserve this." The air crackled with a shift, as if the diner's very walls were turning against David. Sarah met Frank's gaze, his eyes misty but proud, and she gave a small nod, her silence louder than any defense. The Marines stood firm, their presence a quiet vow that kindness like hers wouldn't go unanswered. Something unstoppable was stirring, a force that would echo far beyond the diner's weathered doors. The diner's air thrummed with a restless energy, the Marine's words still echoing like a distant drum, as Sarah stood by Frank's booth, her folded apron a silent testament to her quiet courage. David Kessler gripped the counter, his knuckles pale, his eyes darting as the room turned against him, its pulse shifting. Ellen Harper, her grey hair catching the flicker of the diner's neon sign, spoke again, her voice steady as iron. "You lost more than an employee, Kessler. You lost respect." Her words landed like stones, and the crowd stirred, a low murmur swelling into a tide. Reggie, his coffee untouched, pushed his chair back with a sharp scrape. "I'm done here unless Sarah stays." He dropped a 20 on the table, scribbled with, "For Sarah." A young couple followed, their cash joining the pile, each bill a quiet protest against David's cruelty. Clara, her phone's light steady, said, "This is bigger than your rules now." Mia, wiping tears with her sleeve, stepped forward, voice trembling with raw emotion. "Sarah paid my bus fare when I was broke. She never told a soul." The murmurs grew into a chorus, voices overlapping in a wave of agreement. A trucker, usually silent in his corner booth, stood and added his $10, his voice gruff. "She remembered my wife's favorite order after one visit." The pile of bills grew, a small mountain of defiance under the diner's flickering neon glow. David's voice cracked, grasping for control. "You're all overreacting." But it was too late. The room had chosen its side. A woman near the window, Lynn, a teacher with a gentle but firm tone, spoke up. "Kindness isn't a policy violation. It's what makes us human." More customers rose, their footsteps deliberate, leaving tips not for the diner, but for Sarah, each one a rebuke to David's coldness. The air felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. Javier, the cook, leaned out from the kitchen, his apron off, his voice quiet but piercing. "I've worked here 5 years. Sarah's the only one who ever asked if I was okay." The diner, once alive with the hum of routine chatter, now pulsed with a quiet rebellion. Sarah stood still, her eyes meeting Frank's, his gratitude a steady anchor in the storm. She didn't speak. Her single act of kindness had sparked something unstoppable. The purple heart on Frank's coat gleamed faintly, a silent reminder of sacrifice David could never grasp. The diner's worn walls, etched with years of rushed mornings and forgotten stories, seemed to lean in, bearing witness to a shift that would outlast the day, a moment where ordinary people chose to stand for something greater than themselves. The diner's charged air lingered, the pile of bills for Sarah a quiet monument to the rebellion sparked by her simple act of kindness. Outside, the Asheville rain fell in a soft, steady drizzle, its gentle patter a faint echo of the storm that had unfolded inside. Sarah stood by the curb, her folded apron clutched tightly, her breath visible in the cool, damp air. She didn't cry, but her eyes carried a weight, as if David's harsh words still clung to her like the rain on her jacket. Then the diner's door swung open, its bell jingling softly, and James Carter stepped out, his work boots steady on the wet pavement, his navy jacket speckled with rain. "Sarah," he said, his voice warm but firm, cutting through the drizzle. "I'm Frank's nephew. Our Veterans Center in Asheville needs someone like you. Someone with heart. Better pay, better hours, real purpose." Sarah blinked, her voice soft, almost lost in the rain. "I just did what felt right." James nodded, a faint smile breaking through his weathered face. "That's exactly why we want you." Inside, the crowd stirred, their murmurs softening, some clapping gently as they overheard. Ellen Harper called out, her voice steady, "Take it, Sarah. You deserve it." Reggie raised his cold coffee mug, a quiet salute from his booth. Clara's phone, still recording, caught the moment's warmth, its tiny light a beacon in the dim diner. The neon glow flickered, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum, but the focus was on Sarah's face, hesitant at first, then resolute, her eyes brightening with a flicker of hope. She looked back at Frank, still seated in his booth, his eyes bright with pride, his purple heart glinting faintly. "Thank you," she whispered, not to James, but to the old man who'd sparked it all. His nod was enough, a silent bond forged in that fleeting moment. The air shifted, lighter now, as if the diner itself exhaled in relief. Mia, wiping tears with her sleeve, stepped outside to hug Sarah, her voice breaking. "You're the reason I kept going here." Javier, lingering by the door, apron off, added, "You made this place feel like home." David stood alone behind the counter, his hands idle, his authority a fading echo in the emptying room. Sarah's gaze softened, her shoulders relaxing for the first time that day. She didn't seek this, didn't expect it, but the offer felt like a door opening, a chance to keep doing what she'd always done, care. The rain slowed, and the streetlights cast a gentle golden glow, as if the world outside was aligning with the change within. Something had begun, not just for Sarah, but for everyone who'd witnessed her quiet, unyielding strength. The rain had faded, leaving Asheville's streets glistening under the soft glow of streetlights. But the storm Sarah sparked was sweeping far beyond the Blue Ridge Diner. By evening, Clara's video of the showdown spread like wildfire, lighting up phones across town, then across state lines. Screens glowed with fleeting images, Sarah's steady gaze as she folded her apron, Frank's trembling voice defending her, the Marine's boots standing firm. Each frame was a spark in a growing blaze. Comments flooded social media. "She's a hero." "That manager's finished." A petition demanding David Kessler's apology surged past 20,000 signatures, its numbers climbing like a living pulse. The diner, once a morning haven, stood eerily empty the next day, its neon sign flickering over vacant booths, the hum of chatter replaced by a hollow quiet. David shuffled behind the counter, his hands mindlessly rearranging receipts, his eyes avoiding the silence where regulars once sat. Reggie and others stayed away, their absence a louder rebuke than words. Online, strangers shared Sarah's story, their posts weaving a tapestry of outrage and hope. "She reminded me kindness still exists," one user wrote. Another, "I'd drive miles to shake her hand." Local news seized the story, a headline flashing, "Waitress fired for feeding veteran inspires thousands." The diner's phone rang endlessly, not for orders, but with voices from across the country, some furious, others in awe. A veterans group reposted the video, their caption stark, "This is who we fight for." In her small apartment, Sarah sat on her worn couch, phone in hand, watching the video for the first time. Her own voice echoed, "I paid for it. He's a veteran," sounding stronger than she'd felt in that tense moment. She set the phone down, her eyes distant, not chasing fame but stunned by the ripples of her quiet choice. The diner's fate hung heavy, its tables bare, its legacy tarnished. David's control had crumbled, exposed by a single act of compassion that refused to be silenced. Across screens, hearts, and conversations, Sarah's story was growing into something unstoppable, rewriting what a single moment of decency could mean for a world watching closely. The Asheville dawn broke gently, painting the Veterans Center in soft, golden hues as Sarah Jenkins stepped through its glass doors for her first day. Her sneakers, damp from the morning's dew, squeaked faintly on the polished hardwood, each step a quiet promise. She wore a simple navy shirt, her hands steady, but her heart thrumming with a new, unspoken purpose. The center hummed with gentle life, volunteers sorting stacks of supplies with care, a radio murmuring a low country tune, the warm scent of fresh coffee weaving through the air. An older man, a veteran named Tom, handed her a clipboard, his eyes crinkling with a warm, knowing smile. "You're the one from the diner, aren't you? We're damn lucky to have you here." Sarah ducked her head, her voice soft, almost shy deflection. "I'm just here to help, that's all." She spent the morning guiding veterans through paperwork, her patience a steady anchor in their tangled, often painful stories. One man, his hands scarred from decades of labor, fumbled with a pen. Sarah slid one over, her nod calm and reassuring. Another, a woman with tired eyes, spoke haltingly of lost benefits. Sarah listened, her presence a quiet balm. Frank Dawson sat in a corner, sipping coffee, his purple heart glinting faintly under the center's soft, warm lights. "You're doing good, kid," he said, his voice warm, carrying the weight of their shared moment in the diner. A framed photo hung on the wall, a still from Clara's viral video. Sarah standing by Frank's booth, apron in hand, captioned in bold, "Kindness doesn't need permission." Sarah glanced at it once, then turned away, her focus on the veteran before her, his voice shaking as he signed a form. The center's tall windows let in slants of sunlight, illuminating faces etched with struggle, resilience, and quiet hope. Each story was different, yet Sarah met them all with the same unwavering care, as if each was the only one that mattered. She didn't seek the spotlight, but it found her in these small human moments, in the gratitude of those she helped, in their fleeting smiles. The world outside buzzed with her story, posts, headlines, petitions swelling daily. But here, she was just Sarah, doing what her heart had always done. The center felt like a home she'd been searching for, a place where her instinct to care could take root and flourish. As the day ended, she stepped outside, the evening air cool against her skin, the Blue Ridge Mountains framing a horizon that felt wide open. Her steps were lighter, her purpose clearer, as if the path ahead was finally hers to walk, shaped by a single choice that had changed everything. The Asheville dusk settled softly, draping the city's quiet streets in a warm, amber glow, as if the world paused to breathe. Sarah Jenkins walked toward the bus stop, her navy shirt faintly wrinkled from a day at the Veterans Center, her steps light but purposeful. She never sought fame or praise, yet her single act of kindness had rippled far beyond the Blue Ridge Diner, touching countless hearts she'd never know. Across screens, posts, and hushed conversations, her story endured, a quiet testament that decency could ignite change. Comments still flowed. She showed us what truly matters. Her courage keeps me going. The Veterans Center flourished, its doors open wider because of her care. Frank's Purple Heart, now iconic in a viral frame, symbolized more than sacrifice. It embodied hope. Sarah's choice, so small in that fleeting moment, had woven strangers into a community, proving one act could reshape the world. Share this story. Let it spark someone's faith in kindness. Keep caring, keep listening, because the smallest choices echo forever.